Well, hi everyone and welcome. My name is Rachel Boyle and I'm the Executive Director at the New Zealand Chamber in Singapore. I'm delighted to introduce our speaker today, Lavinia Thanapathy. Lavinia is a sought-after motivational speaker. She's an author and she's a media commentator, and she speaks a lot about change leadership. She's recently been named as one of LinkedIn's top voices for 2020, and that's because of her thought leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic. And today she'll be giving us her Embrace the Crazy keynote and TEDx talk. Lavinia is originally from Singapore, but she joins us today from Berlin in Germany, where she's currently based. And Lavinia will talk for around 20 minutes today, and then we'll take any questions that you have. So a live Q&A session. So please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit these either during the talk or once we start the Q&A session. So I'd now like to hand over to Lavinia to embrace the crazy. Thanks, Lavinia, for your time today.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Berlin, Germany. And you thought you wouldn't travel this year. Who knew Zoom could take you places? So welcome today to my home, where I have this little studio. And as Rachel said, I'm from Singapore, but this year, of all the years to pick, right? This year, we decided we'd have to move to Germany. And so here we are. When I talk about change, I talk about it really from a very personal level. I know change inside and out, both from an organizational perspective and from a very personal one. And I hope today you enjoy some of the stories that we're going to talk about to make change just that little bit easier to bear. This year is such a weird year. It's been crazy for everyone. And so being able to deal with change this year has really helped people. If you were able to deal with change this year, you came through much better than anyone else who was resisting those changes. So I'm going to start with a number. So bear with me. And I'd like you to, so you have your keyboard. So if you would type what you think this means, okay? Just bear with me and here. So I'm just going to So help me out. Tell me what you think this means. So 23. 23 is the most important number for all of us today. It is absolutely a crucial number, and it's a number that will make a difference to every single one of us today. And would you like to venture a guess? And Rachel, if you can see if anyone is reading, is typing in any answers, and you could tell me what they might be.
Well,
it's not my age. I've been there a few times over.
So, is it the number of months and that the border closures will remain?
Ooh, that's a good COVID answer. But it's a really good COVID answer, and it could well be correct. Could be 23 months for COVID border closures.
Got another one.
That's not what I'm thinking.
Is it the year that we'll be able to travel?
Oh, I hope not. I certainly hope we'll be able to travel before that. So 23. Any other guesses? Any other guesses before I go ahead?
Days until 2021.
Ah, bingo!
Oh, someone's got it.
Someone got it. I rarely get people who get it. This is a very clever audience. Okay, so yes, it is absolutely the number of days we have to 2020. We have 23 days. Every single one of us has 23 days to make the most of 2020. And one of the questions I'd like you to think about today as you listen is, what are you going to do with your 23 days? And this is a very important question, because I know for sure that whatever your plans were on the 1st of January 2020, that they don't look anything like your plan today. I guarantee that every single one of us has had to redraw our plans. And so what will you do with your 23 days? So if we were meeting in person, this is what it would look like. I'd be on a stage, I'd have a mic, and I would be able to see you all in person. But that's not how 2020 works, right? None of us are going to get what we really, really want. This year, I got to do a TEDx, which I've wanted to do for ages, and I got to do it for young people, and I love working with young people. And I got to do this thing, and I got to do it from my sofa, which is absolutely not my dream. But it is what it is. This is the reality of 2020. And this is the other reality of 2020. This year, this is what our house looked like. We had 739 cartons moved from Singapore to Germany in 2 massive containers. And those of you who've moved a lot, you know what this is like. This is a complete upheaval of your life. You know, when people don't know what this life is like, they think it's glamorous. And you often get the idea that people have this idea it's like globe-trotting. It's so not globe-trotting. This is what I call turtle trotting. You take all your stuff, you put it on your back, you move to a new place, and then you set up all your stuff again. So this is what change really looks like. It's messy. More people are involved than you think. More time is involved than you think. And it's very, very uncomfortable. Not as uncomfortable as our poor stewardess. I don't know if I'm blocking your view of the stewardess on your screen, but you can move me around so you can see her. This was the stewardess on the flight that we took coming back. And we took Qatar, and then we were flying when nobody else was flying, which is real fun anyway. And so this was what our stewardess looked like. You know, stewardesses, they have this glamorous outfit. They always look good. And this poor woman is, of course, covered in plastic from head to toe. And this was how she was doing her job. Imagine that. So what we are good at, you know, in our lives and in our companies, we're really good at the operational part of change. Part of change that requires us to make lists. You do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. And then we hire consultants, and then we hire professionals to help us make the operational part of our change go smoothly. But in order for that flight to move smoothly, what was also important was some of the emotional, the psychological changes that had to happen with all those people working that flight. They had to do their job like this. They had to enforce new rules. They had to fly different routes. They had planes that were half full. They had some passengers that were cooperative, others that were not. It was all a big mess. And that's the other thing about change no one tells you about. It's just messy. And you know how you deal with it? The first thing is you take care of yourself. And this is so hard for a lot of people. We're so busy being so many things to so many people that we forget that the way we can survive, the way we can thrive is really, it has to begin when we take care of ourselves. You know, on flights, when we used to take them, there was always this announcement, you know, if the oxygen mask drops, put it on yourself first, and then help anyone that you're traveling with that might need it. And there's a really good reason for that. If you can't breathe, you can't help anyone else. This is why that announcement goes, take care of yourself first, put your own mask first, and then take care of someone else. And in order to do that, and people say this a lot, I'm sure you've read no end of articles about taking care of yourself. But for me, the first step of taking care of yourself is a mindset shift. And it's a shift that's helped me so much throughout my life. And the first, most important basic idea is to let go of normal. It is the thing that makes social media so hard for us. It's the thing that makes teenagers struggle so much to fit in. It's the thing that gives so many people self-esteem issues. The core of so many of our confidence issues are all rooted in the idea that there is a normal and that we don't measure up to that normal. And this is so destructive to our thinking. And the turn for me was reading this from Maya Angelou. If you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. And it was only when I read that, it's not like I didn't know it intellectually, it's that I really didn't feel it. I really did believe that there was a normal that I did not measure up to. And if I hadn't come to that realization, a lot in my life would be different. And I'd like to share with you one photo that shows one of these very important ways in which I would have so missed out. So I'm going to show you a picture of my family. Have a look. So this is my family. This is me, and across from me is my husband. And then you see three of our stepchildren, my stepchildren, his children, our adopted son Raja, and our biological child Joshua, who's on top, the guy with the dude t-shirt. So we are a very unusual family. And both of us are on our second marriages. So, and those of you in relationships, or even those of you who are not in relationships, you know, relationships are hard and relationships are complicated, and they're often the most complex part of our lives. So if I had really cared what a normal family looked like, I would not have this fantastic experience and this really rich family life that I enjoy today. Not exactly today, because right now today, we can't see any of our children because they're all scattered around the world and no one can travel. Last year, thankfully, though, we did get together and we did have all our family together. It's really wonderful what can come into your life when you let go of any idea of what normal looks like. You'll know this lady. This is obviously the Mona Lisa, and this is the world's most famous smile. And my favorite story of Mona Lisa and why she has this enigmatic smile is that, and I think part of this is historically accurate, Mona Lisa's husband had commissioned this portrait of her upon the birth of their child. But the less known history was that they'd had a child before, and that child had died. And Mona Lisa, while she was absolutely over the moon about her child that she had in her hands, was still carrying some of the grief from her first child. And when the painter said smile, because this is before iPhones and you could take gajillion photos of yourself, most people had one portrait if they were rich enough. And this was going to be her portrait. And of course, she was told to smile so that she would look most beautiful for this portrait. And she chose this smile that was authentic to the way she felt. The smile that honored the joy of the new child and the grief of the loss of the child that was before. And when we honor who we are, the world will not be able to stop staring. And I learned this the hard way myself. When I did go and see the Mona Lisa, I've seen it a couple of times, but I did take my little 5-year-old to see the Mona Lisa. And foolishly, the mother that I am, I said, "Smile for the camera, child." And this is what I got. This child who did not want to smile for the camera, standing in front of one of the most famous smiles in the world, in history, delivered this smile when he was forced to. So this is what happens when we're not true to who we are and we don't have our true self coming through. This is the smile you end up with. So the second thing I want to share with you, and these are habits that I'm sharing. So the second habit that's really served me well is helping others and having a mission in life that includes other people, something bigger than yourself. And this is crucial because when you are stuck, and this year, you are not the only person that was stuck. There were many people all over the world that felt stuck. And the best way I have ever learned to unstick yourself is really to focus outside, to do something for someone else. And to do that, I have found it helpful to find my tribe. And I know some people don't like the word tribe. I get it. If you call it a group, a community, whatever you want to call it, you need to find these other humans, these people who want to work towards a common goal. And everything you do in a group is going to be harder than doing it yourself, for sure. But you will be able to achieve so much more. So I'm sharing with you two pictures. I have worked in women's rights and women's empowerment for a long time. And these are some of the women I've worked with. I was the vice president of the Singapore Council for Women's Organizations, and that's SCWO. And we used to run a shelter for women. And on the photo with me and Claire Chang and Zoe Tay and June Go, this is a group of us. We were at an event where we raise awareness about violence against women. And with the group on the other side, we've been working to change some of the very patriarchal parts of Singapore's legislation and its rules and its practices. So in order to do the big things that I want to do in my life, having these tribes of people that I can do it with has made it all possible. And Rachel mentioned I wrote a book. I didn't write it by myself. When I chose to write a book, I wrote a book with 14 women. Writing a book is hard. Writing a book with 14 other people is harder because you have to coordinate all of this. And I was the editor of this book. And why? Why would I do this? It's because I wanted women who read this book called Unleash Your Voice, Powerful Public Speaking for Every Woman, that any woman who picked it up would be able to see herself reflected. There were all these the women from all over the world who contributed their experiences and their expertise into this book. And in order for it to be that rich, to have this richness of experience, it would not have been possible if it had just been my voice. So in order to make a bigger, more far-reaching book, we collaborated. And I highly encourage it for you. This is an exhibition at the Singapore at the museum, and it's such an important exhibition because once a year we run this exhibition about the lives of women in Singapore. And the reason I show this photo is because the women here, you may never have seen them. You all probably know the president of Singapore, of course, Madam Halimah Yacob, but the other women in this photo, they've all made great inroads. And there's the president of youre, there's the president of the Singapore Women, of the Financial Women's Association, and all these various women's groups who work so hard behind the scenes. And when you do this kind of work behind the scenes, you need collaborators. And to do that, you need to take some risks. And what women are really good at saying yes to, particularly women, and I know I have a mixed audience today, but particularly women, you know what we say yes to? We say yes to responsibilities. Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do the? Often women will say yes, we will do it. We say yes to responsibilities, but we don't always say yes to opportunities. So taking risks is about saying yes to opportunities, to being able to identify them when they come before you, and saying yes, even if you don't know how it's going to turn out. And these are two experiences that I have had recently. One is the setting up of Inspiring Girls, and the other is, of course, the book. Both things were absolutely untested, untried. No one knew how it was going to turn out. And then, of course, we had COVID happen, and Inspiring Girls is primarily an event-based project. It requires us to run events that bring girls together with female role models. And if you can't run these events, we essentially have like half of our work gone. But what we do now is we record videos. So we encourage women to send us video recordings of what they do so that we can share them with girls. And with our work with getting more women comfortable speaking on stages, now we're trying to get more women comfortable speaking like I am, with a camera and no audience. And for some people, it's easier, and for some people, it's harder. And we still work to make sure that more and more people have their voices heard. And taking risks and saying yes, it doesn't always work out. I'm not going to lie, it doesn't. There are times when you will take risks and it will not work out. But that is not a reason not to. So this is what I call my shiny little corner. And I show it for a very specific reason. If you are going to take risks, you are going to have both feet very firmly planted on the ground. You're going to not mind normal, but what you're going to do is be your own inspiration. I was billed as an inspirational speaker, but the truth is the best inspiration in your life is you. You are the best inspiration in your life, not me, not anyone else, not Tony Robbins, not Oprah Winfrey, no one. You can inspire yourself, and you do that by collecting and focusing on some of the best highlights of your life. I encourage everyone to have a shiny little corner. Even movie stars have it. They have this shelf with all their awards, and it doesn't have to be awards or newspaper clippings. It can be, for young people, I'll tell them to put their grades and their evaluations. Any of these things, whatever is of value to you that you think is a highlight of your life, picture with your dog, with your parents. Honestly, does not matter so long as you think it's a highlight in your life. And it's something that will pick you up when things are not going well, when you've taken risks, and sometimes those risks won't work out. And when that happens, you need a shiny little corner. You need this thing, whatever it looks like for you, a shelf, a slide in my case. This came about so by accident. I was speaking at an event, and it was a youth event, and these kids had gone online and they'd found all these clippings of me, and they put it together in the slide as an introduction. And the first time I saw it, I remember saying exactly those words. Oh, wow, that's like the shiny corner of my life. And so since then, I've used it as an example of what everyone can and should do. It will hold you in good stead when things are not going so well. And things will not go very well. So these are my two best friends, Wendy and Sheila. And Wendy and Sheila and I have known each other since we were 16. So it's been a while. We've been the Three Musketeers for the longest time. And this is at our 3 weddings. We were, of course, there for each other for our weddings. And when I was moving to Germany in July this year, Singapore was in the middle of circuit breaker and in the middle of a dengue epidemic. So I couldn't see my friends because of circuit breaker. And in the end, even when it was slightly lifted, I couldn't see my friends because Wendy got dengue. And just before I left Singapore, Wendy had dengue, and the moment my flight took off, my friend Sheila had a massive heart attack. And I was here, I'd arrived in Germany and found out that my 2 best friends, who for the whole 8 years that I was in Singapore were perfectly healthy, had decided to, one, have a heart attack, and the second, to have dengue, when I could do nothing at all to help them. So sometimes you will do things, you will take your risks, you will do all these things, and things will still not work out. And for me, I had a happy ending, thankfully. Wendy recovered from her dengue quite well since she was young and healthy. And Sheila had triple bypass surgery a week after I arrived and recovered very strongly and is now absolutely back to work and totally healthy again. These things in life, they will happen. Change is not easy. People will keep telling you change is inevitable. Great. What am I supposed to do with that? I know it's coming. It'll come. Then what? The then what? The then what is your character. It's your habits. It's your tribe. It's all these things that add up together to help you face those things. You can't prepare for change at the moment it happens. It needs to be part of everything that you do. I was watching a talk by Sarah Blakely, and she's the woman behind Spanx, the world's youngest billionaire. And she makes risk such a part of her life. She actively practices risk, as in, like, she takes this skydiving and she goes and does improv cinema, comedy where people don't know her. And all of these things, because her philosophy is that she has to practice taking risks so that when the real deal arrives, she's ready for it. She's got the muscles. And that's what I'm here to help you all do. I want you to think about how you can build your change muscles. Muscles can't be built the moment you need it. They need to be built before. So the habits that I'm talking to you about today, these are the habits you need to build. If you build them at the moment of this inevitable change, the change that everyone tells you is inevitable, you will be much, much better ready, and you're much more able to deal with what happens. And as you're doing this, try not to compare yourself to everyone else, because everybody else is doing it one step at a time, and so should you. So here are two pictures of me. The black and white is obviously me before I started school. I think I would have been about 5 or 6 years old at this time. And the other picture is typical of like whatever. If you Google me, you will find any number of pictures that look like this. And between those two pictures, a lot happened, and not all of it was good. If you just look at the finished product, and I'm not finished, no one is finished, we're all a work in progress. But if you see the visible, the outside, the shell, you will not see what went into making that. What you're seeing here today is the neat part of my office. This is what's set up. This is what you're meant to see. You didn't see me wake up. So it's 10 a.m. here in Germany. I woke up quite early this morning. I got my family out the door. I made lunch boxes. I did all those things. They're part of who I am and what the finished product. But what you see is only this. This is what I'm showing. So don't forget, when you're looking at someone else and you think you're not measuring up, you're only seeing what they want you to see. And everybody, every single person out there is a work in progress. Every single person is battling good days and bad days. Every single person has good news and bad news. And every day it's like that. It's the human condition. I was listening to Christine Lagarde the other day. This is one of the most successful women in the world, one of the most powerful women in the world. And she was talking about when she became the chair of the European Central Bank. And she said the first time she walks into any room, and she's broken many glass ceilings, every time she walks into a new room that she's meant to head, she has doubt in her ability to lead. Imagine that. And even the person whose name comes to mind when you think genius, Albert Einstein, used to call himself an imposter because he didn't believe sometimes that he deserved or that people were right in considering him a genius. So if it happens to them, if it's happening to you, it's okay. You're perfectly normal. The only way through is one step at a time. And this is one of my favorite family photos. Can I tell you, this is absolutely one of my favorite family photos. This is at Luna Park in Sydney. And this is my husband with our youngest son. And can you see the sheer terror in this child's face? Just absolute terror. And my husband is German. He never buys these pictures, right? Never, ever will he buy these pictures from them. But he bought this one just because you have to see this the sheer fear in this child's face. You know, after he got off, he asked to go on 5 more times. 5 more times. This child with this face, this fear everywhere, he is absolutely petrified and asked to go on 5 more times. Why? Because he had converted the anxiety he felt, the fear, into excitement. And when you feel anxiety, what you're trying for is not to become calm, because calm is too far away from anxiety. It's an emotion that's not in the same, it's not playing in the same sphere. What you want, the other end of the same piece of thread from anxiety, is excitement. And this is actually the best tip that I give people when they are afraid to present or to go on a stage or whatever. The best thing to do is to start by getting up, and I'm going to teach you this. Your best opening line is, I'm so excited to be here with you today. Because when you start like that, you push anxiety to the side and excitement takes center stage. And excitement is an emotion you can work with. Excitement is an emotion that can drive you. And so this year, to turn anxiety into excitement, I want to ask you all to try a little experiment. Don't write resolutions this year. What I'd like you to think about instead, and obviously I believe in the power of three, right? I have a lot of things that are in threes. But what I'd like you to think about, write about, I'd like you to think about the year that was. And I know it was a crappy year for a lot of people. And I know some parts of the year were really rough. But I guarantee there were 3 good things that happened this year. And if you have 10, super. Start with 3. Find 3, and if you get more, super. Just keep writing and it will work. But focus on getting 3 highlights of your year. Write them down. Then I'd like you to think about 3 people who made a difference to you this year. They may not be people that are super close to you, but they are people who came into your life at the right moment and made things happen for you or helped you out of a difficult spot. Whoever these 3 people are, I'd like you to think about who they might be and write them down. And instead of writing your goals for the year, you'll get there. You're pretty good at probably at making goals and achieving those goals. But what I'd like you to think about are 3 habits. 3 habits that will make for a better you in 2021. The goals will come. But I'd rather you think about habits, because the thing that we are most in control of is the process. The outcome, we rarely have control over, as this year proved over and over and over again. So think about it this way. Think about your highlights. Think about the people you are grateful for. And think about the habits that you want to develop. So I'm going to give you 3 suggestions of habits that might work for you. And those are the 3 I went through, but they need not be the only 3, and they may not be your 3. But I encourage you to pick at least 1 from this list, because this is tried and tested to help people cope with change. Now, this is an interesting travel photo to share in a year when there was no travel. So this photo is taken, I don't even know. It's just, people are always so shocked when I tell them where this photo is taken. So this photo is taken in North Korea, in Pyongyang, North Korea. 2 years ago, North Korea was celebrating their 70th anniversary, and even though there are various restrictions on traveling to North Korea, we were able to travel just women's group to women's group because we were invited by the women's group in North Korea. And so we went there as guests. And of course, we only saw what they wanted us to see. But here we are at one of the big monuments in Pyongyang. And I'm there with June Go, who's the president of SEWO, and Trina Liang, the president of UN Women Singapore. And the 3 of us decide, and we're sorry, but you don't see that. Remember what I said? You don't see some of the picture. And what you don't see in this picture is we're surrounded by security. There's security all along the peripheral of this photo. And we decide that we're going to be slightly irreverent. And so we took this photo of women power in front of these 3 symbols of North Korean power. And as we did this, we were enjoying this really weird experience of being in this very weird place. And part of just being in the moment is being able to embrace the crazy. And the 3 habits that I've shared with you today to embrace the crazy: self-care, first and foremost, never mind normal. The second, help yourself, Have people around you that can help others. Make sure you have people around you that are working towards your goals, that you have goals that are bigger than yourself. And the third, say yes, take some risks. So with that, I'm going to move over to, I'm going to hand back to Rachel, and we can take some questions from the floor, or if Rachel has some questions for me.
Yes, hey, well, thank you so much, Lavinia. That was really, really insightful, and really has made me think back to my 2020 and what risks I've taken, and you know what I can do to prepare for 2021. I've got a question for you around collaboration. So your book that you wrote with 14 other women, what did you learn along the way, and what would you do differently next time when working in such a big kind of collaborative group?
So, you know, with working with so many different women, we did right. We added as much expertise as we could. So the cover, we subcontracted. We hired an illustrator for that. We hired a lot of experts along the way. So it wasn't just us doing it. You know, we hired in experts. So, and because there were 14 of us, this was all possible. And bringing in outside help. When you're collaborating in this group, there's a lot of dynamics happening. And so it's helpful for expertise when you need it to come from the outside. This is why consultants work so well for companies, you know, especially when they're going through a big change. It's so helpful to have someone outside come in with their expertise. So we found that definitely with the book. The thing that I would do differently this time is I think I would do a lot more buy-in. I would try to get a lot more buy-in from other women around us, because a lot of people wanted to be included in the book. We couldn't include everyone. And so we really wanted to make it, but we had a very tight timeline. You know, we produced this book in 9 months. Like we got it to publish, like it was on Amazon 9 months after we decided to do this. So it was like a real, like a speeding bullet train, you know, to get this done. And so sometimes we didn't spend enough time ensuring that, you know, people we had enough buy-in from everyone. I think that's what I would do differently.
That sounds like, yeah, giving yourself a bit more time to produce the fabulous outcome. Fun.
And you know, we were working towards International Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March. So that was our deadline, you know, and so having a deadline is really useful when you're doing a big project because everyone is very focused. And we have such a big public deadline too, like International Women's Day, then it really helps.
Yeah. And looking back, not only on 2020, but thinking back over your life, you talk about risk taking. What do you think the biggest risk is that you've ever taken?
Me, my family, marrying my husband. Look, I had children much later in life. At 38, I had no children. I was divorced and I had no children. And then suddenly, between 38 and 40, I acquired 5. You know, all in one go, almost like overnight, I had this huge family. And so if I had to pick the biggest risk of my life that worked out really, really well, that would be it. Really, it's my family. Because no one else that I know has a family like this. So I have no way of looking around and saying, okay, well, this can work. I don't know. I didn't know at 38 that this would work out. And if I hadn't, I would have missed this really rich, I think the richest part of my life, the part that's the most fulfilling. Even though it's chaotic, I cannot tell you how chaotic it is, especially now that the kids are not kids anymore, and they're mostly adults, and they have partners, and so we have our children, we have their partners, we have their cousins, so sometimes our house would be overflowing with people, and I did not know that I wanted this, because in my first marriage we didn't have any children at all, and we had this very fancy life with no kids, and suddenly I was tripping over children everywhere I turned. So yeah, it's a different life.
Yeah. And you've embraced it. There's a question here about advice. What advice do you have for younger women starting out in their careers?
So I'm going to give some controversial advice because it's the end of the year and I think everyone needs to hear it. Look, my best advice to young people, to young women especially, is to really be careful about who you get into relationships with. Because till today, the most important decision a woman makes in her life is her choice of life partner. And there are studies from both Carnegie Mellon and from Harvard that show this. Your choice of a good life partner can make a difference between success and failure. And you can see that with Kamala Harris right now as the most visible woman in the world, or with Angela Merkel. The women who have really succeeded in the world and who continue to succeed in the world are those with life partners who are complementary to their ambition, who are complementary to what they want to achieve in the world. Whether they agree with them or not, it's someone who's complementary, who's there and supportive, and you can be mutually supportive. And it's shocking to me today, because if you told my 18-year-old self that that was the most important thing, I would never have believed you. But today, I see it over and over and over again. Young women who stumble when they choose the wrong life partner, when they're stuck, when they get very, very trapped in relationships that don't work, and then it really stumbles their whole career. So for men, this is a less important decision, but for women, it's still very, very crucial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is it is important for men, but it's still not? Which is, yeah.
The honest truth is it's not. I wish I could give the answer I would like to give, which is no, it's fine. It doesn't make any difference to any of us. It makes a huge difference. It makes absolutely the bigger difference to women.
Yeah. And another question here, embracing change is a process. How long does it take before you can get comfortable with change?
Oh, how long is a piece of string? Look, even I'm not comfortable with change. I'm going to tell you, we're all a work in progress. This is what I do. And, you know, people, I help other people with this. And the truth is there are times when I resist change. We are built to resist change. We want comfortable. We are all looking for comfort. We want this. Unless you're really one of these real thrill seeker personalities, most of us are just looking for comfortable. We want the familiar. We're drawn to the familiar. You know, people, even in the hiring process, you've heard this before, people hire people who are like them. Our need for likeness, for familiarity is so deeply ingrained. So don't ever punish yourself for resisting. It's perfectly normal. It's just, what are you going to do? What are you going to do after that? So one of the things I read about, especially during COVID, a lot of people were really struggling. And one of the pieces of advice that really seemed to resonate with people was controlled panic is my new advice. And what that is use your phone, because your phone has a fantastic timer device in there, and allow yourself to feel all this fear, all this panic, all this. And for me, it's when I scroll on Twitter and look at all the bad news in the world. I have a timer. I only do that for a fixed amount of time. 20 minutes, I'm done. Once the timer goes, I stop and go back to productive activity. We need to be able to let that out somewhere. The fear, the anxiety, all of that, we need to let it out somewhere. So let it out. But controlled panic is my advice. Put a stop to it. Otherwise, it turns into a huge pity party and then you'll go spiraling down. If you need to eat ice cream to make yourself feel better today, eat the damn ice cream. Just don't do it every day, 3 times a day. Then you have a problem. But if that's what you need today, that's what you need today.
Set a timer on the ice cream as well.
Hot chocolate at the moment. It's 0 degrees here.
You do not need ice cream then. There's another question here. What's your advice for someone who's trying to change career mid-40s? Obviously, that's a huge change and life change. What would your advice be for that?
Yeah, look, I've changed careers a lot of times. My husband's a career diplomat. And so we move around the world every 4 years. My career has to adapt to his. I'm originally a lawyer by training. And obviously it's too hard for me to practice law in different countries. That's not really going to work. So then I pivoted into a career in branding and communications, and now this is what I do. Pivoting career later in life is not impossible. What it is you need to be able to show your future employer how you can use what you used to do to make what you're gonna do work. And one way to do that I've learned and that I've encouraged many people to try is volunteering. So a lot of people have asked about moving into social media marketing. This seems to be a really popular, people want to move into this field. And the best way to do it is actually to find an organization that you really identify with, from SCWO, for instance, or any other organization, and volunteer your time. I bet even at the New Zealand Chamber, you encourage volunteers, right? You probably have a need for volunteers. And if you can volunteer with an organization and use and project what you're going to do in the future, the career that you want to do, if you can do it in a volunteer capacity in an organization, it really shows a future employer how convinced you are that this is what you're doing, and you can show real successes. The reason we don't succeed when we want to pivot careers is because we're not thinking about it from the employer's perspective. We're not thinking, we keep thinking about us. I wanted to, it was my passion too. It's really about what you can bring to the table of the next company or the next organization. And when you see it from that perspective, you'll be much more successful with your pivot.
That's great advice, thank you. Now I'm just checking one last time in our Q&A. I don't think we have any more questions there, so I'll wrap it up now. Lavinia, thank you so much for your time today. I can't think of a more relevant topic in this crazy year that we've all had. And personally, I found it really comforting that you reminded me that change is a universal experience, so everyone is affected. And also, I liked where you acknowledged, where you talk about the importance of acknowledging the emotional aspects of change. So it's not just, the steps that you go through, and also not worrying about what is normal. So yeah, look, for me, this has been really inspirational and probably the breath of fresh air that I needed at the end of 2020. So thank you so much. Stay warm, and I hope you have a lovely Christmas. And thanks for being here today.
Thank you, everyone. Bye from Berlin.